Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Podcast. It is the 29th of October.
And it's going to be 88 degrees today.
And it's going to be 80-some degrees today. Two of the three of us are in shorts, and kids will be trick-or-treating in 48 hours.
Podcast listeners want to know, which two of you?
Well, who would you think is the most obvious?
Mr.
Certainly
Thighs?
Cody's in shorts.
Yeah.
If there's a chance to wear shorts, Cody's wearing shorts.
The only time I've seen Luke Stuckmeyer wear shorts
I've worn
is
shorts.
when we're
In the
at
bleachers.
Wrigley Field.
In the bleachers.
And
Yes.
the golf outings.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't think you've wore shorts once
Not
in
on
the
this
studio.
set. Not on the set.
And I think it's
I
largely
think I
because you don't
actually
want
have.
people to see your
I think I
your
actually
legs.
have once.
And by the way, I think I agree with that. You're a professional.
I don't remember.
That's right. It's a professional. It's a professional thing, you know?
Listen, when we got hired and they said that we could wear whatever we want, I took it to heart, brother.
I know, I did too.
Okay?
I know, I was like, should I wear
I went from a
button-down
job-
shirt?
I mean,
know.
come on. Keep in mind, I went from pocket squares and custom suits to a baseball hat and jeans.
Yeah.
So I'm,
I went from khakis and a polo every
that's
day.
right.
Okay? Like I know. I mean, I
I've
didn't have to.
adjusted.
I didn't have to wear suits like you at NBC and all that. But again, you're
Ties. I
telling
got a
me
lot of
I can wear
ties. If
shorts and a hoodie?
Anybody needs a tie, I got
I'm
lots
in.
of ties. Hundreds of ties.
So, not to derail the whole day today, but Ryan and Cody, when you were like in school in like journalism, did you ever have to like do the like I'm wearing a suit today for this report thing? Did you ever have to do that or no?
No.
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 I mean, they
no
went,
class
they
that
went
was
to
like
Eastern and Mizzou. Not exactly.
I know.
Sorry. But,
Whoa. Do
the
not.
number one
come
journalism
on.
school.
Come on.
Harvard of the Midwest.
Mizzou,
Okay.
Mizzou made. Come on.
Lot of Valpo broadcasters
The
out
only-
there.
Not as many
Eastern
as the
Illinois
Mizzou
is
Mafia.
the only school in this state that knows how to
Ginger
develop
Z.
quarterbacks. Okay.
hey,
Adam Amin.
nice. Yeah.
Larry, I can't think of his name.
Meyer?
No, Channel 7. Maurin? Is it Maurin?
Kay Adams went to Mizzou.
Vinny
John
Duber?
Anderson
Vinny
went to
Duber?
Mizzou.
Vinny Duber?
Vinny Duber also went to Mizzou.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's a guy that covers the Clippers out for the LA Times who went to Eastern. I forgot his name.
Nice.
And Yurko.
Oh, yeah. Well, Yurko, you play football at Eastern. Yeah.
Anyways.
The Mizzou Mafia is everywhere.
Unfortunately.
It don't matter.
Just know.
Small school. We got big pride, though, brother.
Yes.
All right.
We're gonna talk about the World Series. We're gonna grade. Our final grades are coming out today. We've done all of the key players. We've done Jed Hoyer, and the much-awaited Craig Counsell report card comes out on this podcast.
Wait, we're not
highly
You're
anticipated.
not self-grading? You're not going to do a show where you grade yourselves?
We should.
Actually, that could be tomorrow. We need to start filling some time.
We got to fill some time here. Grade ourselves.
Yeah, before the offseason officially starts. You
Luke and Ryan can grade me. I'll grade them.
Half of Cody's grade is his beer bat chugs.
Yeah. Oh, the
Yeah.
chat's going to be on one. If we
has
start
the beer
doing that.
has the beer bat chug Twitter page posted like your average for the season yet?
Yeah, they did actually. It was like 10.5. I'll go confirm, but
It was a quality chug, right?
Quality chug was 10.25,
Ooh.
yeah.
just over.
I'm looking it up right now.
Mike Taylor says the Yankees suck. Well, I mean,
10.61 for the
so
entire
slightly
season.
over a quality
Yeah.
chug.
This sounds like my GPA.
Slightly over.
Anyway,
When we get to the council grades, Jim Cook has already weighed in and says A+. He had fun, tried his best, and that's all that matters.
Nice.
Which is true. He was better than the White Sox manager. There's no question about that. No question about that.
Which one?
at the end of the day,
Which one?
all that matters
Both.
is to have fun.
That's right. It's all about having fun. Are the Dodgers about to sweep the World Series? Didn't see it coming. They were the best
Yeah.
team this season,
Remember,
but I didn't see a sweep coming.
remember when I said Yankees in 4?
I do remember
Yeah,
that.
I said
It's all
Yankees
being
in 5.
factored into your grade tomorrow.
Exactly.
What did you say? Yankees in 7?
I said Yankees in 7.
So it's still possible.
Still possible.
Yankees in 5. Yankees in 5 is not possible anymore.
Oh.
But I didn't see the Dodgers being up 3-0. I thought, especially after Game 1, how close that was. It hasn't, like, yesterday ended up 4-2. It didn't feel that close.
No,
It wasn't
like,
because
well,
of
as soon as-
Verdugo hitting that homer
Yeah, but-
before the last
but
out was
as
made.
soon as Freeman hit the home run, I was like, this might be over. And I mean, that's 3 straight games. By the way, you can just give him the MVP award,
Yeah.
right? I don't know what the odds were on that going into the World Series. You think about all the stars. You think Judge. You think Soto. Betts.
Yeah.
Right? Ohtani. I would guess he was no better than 5th best for odds for MVP. And
Yeah.
he's homered in 3 straight games, including the first ever Grand Slam walk-off
Yeah, he's
in
actually,
World Series history.
he's actually homered.
It's over.
If you go back to 2020, he's homered in 5 straight World Series games. He's
Wow.
a big time player. Big time player. And playing hurt is a huge factor in that too. Yeah, Freddie Freeman is just a gamer. I think Freddie Freeman is one of those like stars that fans of other teams don't hate. Like maybe someone in the
Atlanta.
East,
Not
in
even
the NL
Atlanta. He didn't leave. It wasn't his choice
yeah,
to really
right.
leave.
But like maybe someone maybe a Mets fan doesn't like Freddie Freeman because he played for the Braves, whatever. But like, it would feel kind of like, I think for Cubs fans how Joey Votto is. Like obviously he played for the Reds and he killed the Cubs a lot, but it's hard to hate a guy like that. I think the same goes for Freddie Freeman. He's just a
Well,
gamer,
Everything
man.
going on with his
Yeah.
family and what was his daughter that like had some medical problem?
Son, yeah,
Son.
yeah.
My bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Child, I should say.
Child had.
And then he's on the ankle injury and all that, and he's always been a likable guy.
Yeah.
Always been a likable guy, even when he was in Atlanta. Plays hard. He says all the right things. Yeah, I mean, if you force me to choose a guy to like on the Dodgers, it's him.
Well, this is not a knock on Michael Busch, but we're excited about the potential of Michael Busch at first base. But he's not on the Dodgers because they knew he'd never be as good as Freddie Freeman. Right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
Well, that's how they felt.
that's how they felt.
Right.
They felt he would never be good enough to take Freddie Freeman off of first base, so we might as well use him as a
Freeman's
chess
still
piece.
in the prime of his career,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and some might say, I guess.
Right.
Like, I don't know how old he is, but, it's not like they could just hold on to Bush forever, and wait for one of those guys. If there's anything about Michael Busch that they probably wish they had, was someone to play second base early in the season. Gavin Lux played better in second half into the year, but he was awful at the beginning of the year. And so I think there were some Dodger fans that were upset that they had traded Busch. But I don't know if the Dodgers felt comfortable playing Busch at second base either, even though most of his minor league games were played at second.
Right.
So that's something that we'll never know unless they talk about it publicly, but
They won't.
right. So, I do think when we talk about Busch being quote unquote blocked, it's legit because Ohtani was your DH. And then I think going into the year, wasn't Betts supposed to play second base?
Betts was
some?
second.
Think
He
so.
was short. He's been center.
Right.
He's like,
he can play wherever.
yeah,
and then-
he's basically. I thought it was they'd asked him to go back to short, right?
Mhm.
At
Yeah.
one point,
yeah. And then
and he's done everything
Well,
they could
Freeman's-
ask.
Then you have Freeman
signed
first.
through 27 too.
Okay.
Like so, he's on a pretty long-term contract with 6 years.
And then also they have
162 that he
Muncy
signed.
at third. So even if they wanted to play him at third, it's like, well, Muncy is
Right.
he's been as consistent as they could have hoped that he
Yeah.
could be throughout his tenure with the Dodgers.
That's why I said yesterday the gap between the Dodgers and the Cubs is
Yeah.
like the Grand Canyon right now.
Yeah.
Let's
Well,
just
and
be
then,
realistic.
so-
And that's not to say the Cubs don't have good players. They do.
Yeah, and then with Freddie Freeman, like obviously he's getting older. Right? He's 35 years old. That's obviously the downswing of his career. He still had a good year, 137 WRC plus, 4.1 wins above replacement according to Fangraphs. If you want to go by WAR, like that was his worst season, not including 2020, since 2015 when he had a 3.3. It's still a really good season, but like you can understandably like he's on the downswing of his career, still having good seasons, but not quite Freddie Freeman that he was a few years ago. But yeah, I mean the like I was saying, like the guys that you trust in big spots like that, Freddie Freeman's one of them for the Dodgers, and he keeps coming up big. You know, the eventual, obviously it happened early on in the game, but the eventual game-winning home run yesterday, the walk-off grand slam, it just, we expect, like you said, Luke, we expected the stars to be the stars, right? And that was including Ohtani, Judge, Soto. I think even if you believed in what Giancarlo Stanton was doing coming off the LCS, then he was included in that. I don't know that Freddie Freeman was necessarily expected to be in that stratosphere.
Five
of
or
those
six,
guys,
five
right?
or six,
like
probably
you said,
not 1, 2, 3, or 4.
and especially hobbled a little bit by injury. But he's coming through right when the Dodgers need him. He's playing good defense over there at first base too. And yeah, it's just when you're in a 7-game series, max 7-game series, and you need your big guys to come through. Freddie Freeman's the one that's been stepping up the most and doing it for him. That's cool to see, I think.
He's been the single best player in the series,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not sure that the Dodgers starting pitchers shouldn't be getting as much credit as he is. Now, you're not going to give the starting rotation World Series MVP, but they've gone 16 2/3 innings with 2 earned runs. Flaherty went 5 1/3 with 2 earned runs. Yamamoto, 3 earned runs, excuse me. Yamamoto, 6 1/3, and Buehler, 5 innings last night. Again, we talk about the regular season and we complain, this guy didn't go 7. We didn't get 7. And look at the playoffs. That's it. The trend continues in the postseason. And we're talking about these being spectacular starts, and they are against a Yankees lineup that's as powerful as it is. But 3 earned runs in 16 2/3 innings, they've been pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Buehler was the guy last night, another guy that's dealt with injuries and could be available to you this offseason. We talked about Flaherty, one of the other 3, and I think most people were like, well, if you can't get Corbin Burns, Flaherty'd be an option. Would you put Buehler ahead of Flaherty on your wish list for the offseason if you're trying to add that starter, which hopefully the Cubs are?
I guess it would depend on what you believe in, right? Like Jack Flaherty, they didn't sign him to a prove-it deal last year. He had a good season this year. Do you believe that he's going to pitch like that again, or was it a prove-it-year deal? I really got to make some money this offseason. Like, however do you believe
he certainly
that?
has injury history.
Yeah, and then Walker Buehler obviously has his own injury history, but you know what he is at his best. When he's healthy and pitching at his best, you know the kind of ceiling he has. Do you want to buy into like the sort of bounce-back candidate type thing that with a guy that just like a bounce-back with guy with really high upside and see if that provides a really big arm in that rotation for you? I don't know exactly because both come with risks. Both are going to come with risks. Because I would
both will have suitors.
Yeah, I would put Shane Bieber in the same Walker Buehler like level, and I think he may not be ready to start the season, but he's another guy that has, when he's healthy and at his best, a high ceiling. I don't know if he can get to that ceiling anymore.
Right.
But so it just depends on what you believe in. Obviously, going and getting someone like Corbin Burns seems like it would provide more certainty, but he's gonna be
built cheaper.
He's not gonna be as cheap as those guys would come. And another guy that's like on getting towards like I don't know if he's 30 yet. He might be like 29 going on 30, but 30 is where drop off start just naturally for Major League Baseball players. So he probably provides more certainty, but you're also gonna have to pay him a lot more than what you would do with any of these other guys if you were to add them to your rotation.
Yeah, I mean,
Blake Snell maybe is a little closer to the Corbin Burns level as well.
The fact that what he did last night was impressive, largely just because he just has not been good this year. He hasn't even really been good in the postseason. But what he did last night was his best performance in October.
Last night.
But this year he had a 5.38 earned run average, expected ERA of 4.68. His FIP was 5.54. Ks per 9 was 7.65. His peak years, man, he was, his K per 9 was over 10 for multiple years. So it's not that I'm not intrigued. I like it as I guess in some ways a flyer. I just feel like he can't be the only one. He would have to be depth.
He
You know
can't
what
be
I
your
mean?
biggest move
Yeah.
this offseason. That much we know for sure.
It's not to say that I don't believe that he can get back to 2021 form, but like you guys said, it's a risk. I'm not against it though.
The Craig Counsell grades are coming up in a second, but first, stop in today to browse their huge inventory of new vehicles right now at Ray CDJR. Shop electric savings like 0% financing for 72 months on a new 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xE and Wrangler 4xE models. Or shop over 125 vehicles they have priced under $20,000. Let the amazing team at Ray CDJR help you during each step of your car shopping journey with Ray's Price Promise. The numbers you're hearing right now on the podcast are the same prices you can expect to shop in-store and online. That's because Ray's Price Promise means no price changing, no add-ons, and no hidden fees. And since they prioritize affordability for their customers, hurry into Ray CDJR today and shop one of the Chicago area's largest inventories, then drive home with more money in your pocket than you'd expect. So if you're in the market for a new vehicle, then you have to check out the team at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram because they are the only team we recommend. Visit them today on Route 12 in Fox Lake. For more information, visit Ray CDJR in Fox Lake or raycdjr.com, serving the community since 1963. Cody, when he goes to Mexico, will be driving his new vehicle from Ray CDJR all the way down to Mexico.
That's great.
No flying. He's going to road trip it.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet.
Go all the way through. The long way.
That's right.
Can't wait.
The road less traveled.
Yeah.
There you go.
One nice little
Look,
road
kids,
trip.
Grand Canyon.
I'll make sure to take some Sunnyside with me. Responsibly, of course. Our friends at Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary are here to elevate your fall. Sunnyside is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping. They have a crazy selection with over 100 different strains to choose from with easy online ordering and in-store pickup. Wherever you are in Illinois, Sunnyside has a location for you. They have spots as far south as Champaign and as far north as South Beloit. Stop in the store nearest you for expert guidance from their staff or select from quality lines like Cresco or FloraCal. Available now, Luke. I keep letting you know because I know how forgetful you get.
FloraCal?
No, they have Good News has a new one.
Oh, yeah, the Good News.
It's a limited time offer right now
Vapes.
for the Island Vibes.
Yeah, Island Vibes.
I might need some of that before I go to Mexico.
I mean, it kind of goes with a trip to Mexico.
Right.
However,
However,
more of a peninsula, I guess.
If you have a particular one that you like and you just like to stick with it,
right,
like our good friend Corey Friedman, you can pick up Mindy Siegel's award-winning chocolates at Sunnyside. Yeah. He won't shut up about. I saw him on Saturday at a Halloween party. He wouldn't shut up about Mindy Siegel's chocolates.
He just kept walking around everybody. Trick or treat, trick or treat.
Yeah.
Mindy's trick or treat.
He loves Mindy Siegel's award-winning chocolates. All right, you too can love Mindy Siegel's award-winning chocolates by visiting sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases. Enter promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for 21 plus or Illinois medical card holders.
There was also great defense in the game last night. A couple guys thrown out at the plate. Mark Leiter Jr., nice job.
Yeah.
Former Cub factor. We haven't really had the huge
I know. I was thinking
former
that was
Cub
setting
factor,
up.
although Rizzo had a couple hits.
Mm-hmm.
Rizzo's continuing.
But it hasn't really,
walk at the end of the game.
a former Cub hasn't really impacted.
No. Yeah, Leiter, I thought last night that was a moment, a
Me
chance.
too. I
as
thought
a
this is where they
non-Cub
flip it.
factor.
Leiter flips the series.
No.
My bold prediction that Mark Leiter Jr. closes out the World Series winning game, it's still possible.
Sure.
It's a little more unlikely, but it's still possible.
Yeah.
That's
Sure
why
it
it's a
is.
bold prediction, you know?
It is a bold prediction.
Yeah, I mean, he had that play at home. I don't remember who they cut down at home.
Stanton.
Was it Stanton? No, it was Leiter Jr. Was it also Stanton in that one?
Stanton got thrown out.
Stanton got thrown out at left
Stan
field,
was,
but
but either
Leiter
way,
Jr. had the one that flipped to home.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed
I
that
can't
one.
remember.
I
who it
think
was.
there were 3 players thrown out at the plate.
That might have been when I was
At least
watching
two,
the
right?
Bulls
2 or 3,
game.
yeah.
Two
At least 2, maybe 3.
Yankees
I can't
and 1
remember.
Dodger,
Yeah.
I think.
That was
Mookie Betts, or no, it wasn't Betts. It was with the throw from left field.
well, Teoscar Hernandez.
Teoscar Hernandez had the throw.
he got Stanton out at home, and that's
Boy, was he slow.
oh
coming around
man,
base.
it was like when you
Did he think he was going to be safe? Was that a
That was
Tyreek
that's
Stevenson?
a
Did he pull a
bad-
Tyreek
That's
Stevenson?
a bad sound. That's a bad
Was it a
sign.
Tyreek Stevenson or was it a wave him home Willie Harris?
Willie Harris.
That was outrageous. Like
it was like when the
I
Cubs
think-
were on the south side and Willie Harris sent Cody Bellinger.
Well, they just got
And
lucky.
they got
home.
lucky that the
Yeah.
shortstop didn't throw the ball home.
this looked like that time that Herb Lawrence ran in the alley and fell on his face. That's how bad it looked.
Yeah, I mean,
When Herb tried to say he was faster than I don't remember who the player was.
yeah, I mean,
Yasmani Grandal.
Yasmani Grandal.
it did still take a really good throw to get him. A not on the money throw. Maybe he gets the slide in is safe. But with someone like Giancarlo Stanton or with his speed, it's not a guarantee that he's getting home from second on a ball that's not really taking Teoscar Hernandez off his route. And he made a really good throw to get him right on the money. Catcher apply the tag, and that was it. And I feel like that was kind of a deflating thing for the Yankees as they're like trying to start getting on the board and having Giancarlo Stanton get thrown at home. Like that's for anyone that's just in a game that's deflating as far as like starting a rally or killing a rally. But yeah, I mean that's credit to Teoscar Hernandez for he kind of keeps coming through, and like that's like someone that this offseason may get a pretty big payday as well.
That's crazy. I don't think last offseason we didn't talk about him really at all.
No.
And the Dodgers picked him up on like the 1 or 2 year deal with the option. And isn't that like he has a player option? Maybe it's just a 1 year deal. I don't know. But either way, like Cubs certainly could have used his power this year. That's for sure. But I also at the same time didn't envision him to have the season that he had with the Dodgers. So that's on the Cubs front office.
Was he the home run
try and get
champ
that
at
right.
the All-Star game?
Yeah, he was, wasn't he?
Didn't he
I
win the
believe
home run derby?
Yeah, home run derby.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
he
that matters.
He is an
at all.
unrestricted free agent going into this offseason. So it's possible.
Sure.
Mike Taylor says, yeah, didn't he win the home run derby? That's right. We're on the same wavelength there. The live YouTube chat is the best way to enjoy the CHGO experience. There's a lot of you in there today, which we know 11:30 in the afternoon is a little bit of an odd time. It's not, some people aren't quite to lunch at work. Some
Is that
kids are at
considered the
school.
afternoon? I
No,
would
it is not.
consider it the morning.
I was going to say it's the before noon.
In about 8 minutes, it's going to be the afternoon.
Sure, but
Not yet.
11:30.
Morning,
Late morning.
late morning, early afternoon.
Late morning works.
It's Cubs brunch.
Cubs brunch.
Cubs brunch.
Cubs brunch.
Brunch
Maybe
with the
we'll
Cubs.
Where's
we
the
should relabel
mimosas?
it. Cubs brunch. The whole
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, where are the
was
mimosas?
called
We need you guys
Do
doing
me and Ryan
mimosas.
need to bring in the mimosas?
Guess so.
Yes.
I'm for that. I'd have a mimosa.
Wow.
One, I got to drive back. So a lot of people in the chat, right when the podcast started, were firing off their grades already
Mm-hmm.
for Craig Counsell because it's a highly anticipated, much publicized grade. The whole
People have
baseball
been
world's
waiting
talking
all
about.
offseason for this.
Half the
Apparently.
sports world is talking about Tyreek Stevenson and Eberflus and the Bears, and the other half is talking about what grade are we going to give Craig Counsell. I was
Absolutely.
surprised to see that the Godfather, Michael Collada, early in this, look at this positivity.
Would have been in playoffs if Hoyer gave him a decent closer. 28 blown saves.
Gives him a B plus. Shane Newbanks also a B
Wow.
plus.
Wow.
A lot of positive.
I
Lots of positive.
am surprised by Godfather. However, I'm not really surprised because if he really didn't like Craig Counsell, he would have been in the chat every single post game saying to fire him. He did that with David Ross every single episode like in 23. And he's also been saying to fire Hoyer in the chat every single day. That and Ricketts is cheap. So I am
This
surprised.
is an example of Ricketts not being cheap, though.
Sure.
One of his best.
I am surprised that he gave him a B plus, but also not surprised at the same time. I guess I wasn't expecting as high of a grade.
Yeah.
Barb, the godmother, gives a B. Says it's not his fault they don't have better players. No way Counsell gets anything higher than a C.
That's
I
fair.
have Ghost.
Says I have ghosts.
So I was trying to figure it out because, like Ryan was saying, it's a difficult grade to give because how do you really quantify
What a
how much
manager.
impact a manager has on a season? Now, if you would listen to the Niren says C minus for being bland. If you were to go with the live YouTube chat and all of the hate at David Ross, well, you would say, well, there's a heavy impact. And then there was the firing of Ross and the hiring of Counsell, and many, many people, not just in the chat, but on Twitter, people were saying it's at least 5-6 wins. It could be 8 wins now that he's going to add just by changing managers. You now have 5, 6, 8 more wins. All right, so I'm going to grade on that scale a little bit. I can't say, like a lot of people in the live YouTube chat, I can't say that he's to blame for a lot of stuff that went on. The bullpen was not his fault, but he stuck with Neris too long. I also knock him for sticking with Seiya in right field a little bit too long. I liked his lineups more than I liked David Ross's lineups. I didn't love some of the early bullpen stuff, like sticking with Neris, but again, the injuries and the players, the hand that he was dealt with those players, it wasn't a perfect situation. You weren't handing him a great hand, but at the same time, I was told 5 or 6 wins going in. So if that's the bar we're holding him to, I just thought it was an average season. His first season was an average season. Did I expect that there might be more based on what everybody was telling me, how he was this tactical genius in Milwaukee, and that's the Brewers were always good because he got the most out of his players, and lots of times they were average players. Well, I would argue he had better than average players this year for the most part, but the results were less than what he was getting in Milwaukee. In fact, I could see David Ross wanting to call up this podcast right now. The lines are open, David, if you'd like, and saying, oh, so it was all my fault. So it was all my fault? I'm back here in Florida just enjoying my pay, because clearly it wasn't all David Ross's fault. Now, that doesn't mean that I didn't like Craig Counsell's lineups better than I liked, and some of the decisions better than I liked David Ross's, but it wasn't Rossi's whole fault.
Well, now you sound like Lil Ross. They're going to start calling you Lil Ross in the chat.
Great Grandpa Rossi, they could call me because I'm older than Rossi. So I gave him a C. The only thing I will say is this. I know that some people that will give him lower than a C, if there's somebody out there that says D, F, he doesn't get excited, he doesn't show any fire, he doesn't stick up for his players, those arguments. The one I don't want to hear is, was he worth $40 million? Should he be paid as the highest manager in baseball? I'll just say this, not our problem. It has... While I did grades and impact my grades somewhat for the players on, all right, was this guy worth $25 million this year? Was this guy? Because that impacts the luxury tax and how the team is put together. This is strictly Tom Ricketts. You want to give him $8 million a year? Has no other impact on the team. It's a place where you can overspend and it shouldn't impact unless
you let it impact.
Unless you personally say, we're not going to spend more than this, because now that $8 million is also part of the cost of running the business, which also would be your scouts, which some have been fired, and some of the other things go on. Then I'm worried about the $8 million. But because it's not part of the luxury tax, I don't figure it into my cost or my grade, and I'm going to give him a C.
Yeah, I think that's part of like the pay, what he's getting paid, right? The 5 years, $40 million, and people like, I know James Colestock in the chat brings that up a lot. That it shouldn't.
James is not a fan.
Yeah, what he's getting paid,
I would have never guessed.
What he's getting paid yearly salary should not, because again, like you said, because it doesn't affect the luxury tax. It's only money at that point. It shouldn't affect what the Cubs and obviously what Tom Ricketts allows baseball operations to do based on, if you letting what you're paying the manager affect how you run the rest of your baseball operations, as far as what you're willing to what your budget looks like for player contracts and stuff like that. I think that would be more of an indictment on the front office or more like the ownership. If you,
100%.
If you allow it
to
affect it, because again, like we're saying, it doesn't affect your luxury tax at all. You can still pay the players the same amount that you were paying them last year, because another $8 million to Craig Counsell doesn't affect that as much. I know we got to go to a break right here.
So we're going to get Ryan's grade in a second, but you're saying basically, if you're going to give him $8 million and then say, well, I can't give a player another $8 million to this player because I gave 8 to my manager, that would be one of the biggest indictments on Ricketts' ownership, if that were the case. Got to tell you about our partners at Blue Moon. Some beers can say they're brewed for baseball, but only Blue Moon is brewed by baseball. Beer and baseball just go together, and no beer goes better than the one that was literally born in a ballpark. Blue Moon was created at Coors Field in Denver, Colorado. Blue Moon isn't just another beer. It's a whole different experience. It's what I like to call a vibe because I'm hip. So why strike out with the same old beer when you can get something that's one of a kind? A beer this good only comes around once in a Blue Moon, but you can enjoy it all year long. Bring the ballpark to you with Blue Moon Belgian-style wheat ale. It's one of a kind every time. Get Blue Moon delivered by visiting get.bluemoonbeer.com/CHGO to see your delivery options. That's get.bluemoonbeer.com/CHGO. Blue Moon, made brighter. Celebrate responsibly. Blue Moon Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. And as Emma would say, period.
Period.
Or slay.
Slay, period.
Yeah. Luke, have you heard the news?
What's the news?
We're sponsored by Chicago Sports Network.
Oh, okay.
The new home of the Blackhawks, Bulls, and White Sox games. CHSN will broadcast more than 300 live games per year across the Blackhawks, Bulls, and White Sox, and will feature a full lineup of original Chicago-focused sports content. They're also Chicago-based, Chicago-built, and Chicago to the core, and they're bringing it to every corner of Chicago across our 77 neighborhoods and beyond. As CHSN, Chicago comes first. Visit chsn.com for more info on how to watch Bulls, Hawks, and Sox games all season long. That's chsn.com.
I'm not getting surgery in Mexico.
I knew you were.
Yeah.
Barb wants to know if Cody's going down for one of those somewhat
Also-
illegal surgeries down in Mexico.
Also, Barb's still worried about my hip. Not exactly sure why, but Barb, the hip's doing fine.
And she is still very, very worried about all the trades Jed Hoyer lost us.
She gave him an F- is what she said in the chat.
I have Ghost with the Counsell comment. Counsell has about as much personality as a dead goldfish floating upside down in a fish tank. Not a fan, apparently. Apparently not a fan. Kaboosh.
I feel like I could say the same thing about Aaron Boone and Dave Roberts.
Yeah. So before I get to my grade, I wanted to bring up this quote from Jed Hoyer from his end-of-season press conference. Asked, kind of what everyone's asking. Like, you brought in Craig Counsell. You made this big swing to bring him in, hoping that it would, change things. At the end of the day, you ended up with the same record that you ended up with David Ross last season. So what was the difference that Craig Counsell made at the big league level? Here's how Jed responded. Quote, "We signed him to a 5-year deal, not a 1-year deal for a reason. The impact he's going to have on the organization, I think, will be tremendous, and I think it'll be felt year over year over year. I think being able to come in, establish a culture, help us get better with processes and things like that, I think is going to have a huge impact. So I understand if you want to take sort of a 1-year snapshot and we have the same record. That can be a view you can take, but I take a completely different view, which is I think he's going to have a massive impact on us for a long time. And like I said, you don't sign someone like that and just evaluate them on year one. I'm very confident that when we're staring back at that contract in year 5, that it's going to be pretty clear that it was a great decision, and I couldn't be happier that he's here."
Okay. I hope he's right.
Yeah,
He's right.
I kind of share the same view. And part of the reason is I think when you evaluate coaches across sports, I think a manager of a baseball team is probably the hardest one to do. Like the coach of a football team, especially if he's running the offense, like he calls the plays, right? He calls the plays. Players got to go execute, but he's the one setting everything into motion. Basketball coach, same way, calls the plays. And obviously, they have freestyle plays and stuff like that, but he puts the plays in. Players got to execute it, but it does come down to what the coach tells them to do. Obviously, Craig Counsell does some of that as well, but I just think compared to the other sports, the manager has less of an impact on on-field stuff than in other sports. I think what really good managers do is manage the personalities behind the scenes. Obviously, making in-game decisions like going to the right guy in the bullpen, putting the right pinch hitter in. That stuff matters too. But I think really good managers are really good at managing the personalities, managing players, player injuries, managing personal stuff that players have going on, like all the stuff behind the scenes that we don't know publicly. And obviously, part of that is keeping that in-house and not revealing it publicly. That's also part of Craig Counsell's job. But doing that behind the scenes in the clubhouse and taking that and building a culture that can lead to winning. And I think in his first year with Craig Counsell, like he wasn't allowed to bring anyone from Milwaukee with him. I'm sure he probably would have, or that would have been like a goal of his to bring some guys from Milwaukee with him. Wasn't able to do that. Obviously got hired later in the coaching cycle than maybe we would have expected. If he would have signed in October, it probably would have been the Mets, or he would have gone back to Milwaukee because it was after his contract ended. Jed Hoyer was able to swoop in and do that. So wasn't able to bring his own coaching staff over and was kind of a little late in the cycle as far as keeping his coaching staff together. And that's kind of why you saw so many holdovers from David Ross. Not why you've seen a few coaching staff changes be made this offseason. I guess my grade, I just found it I think it's too hard to evaluate a manager. And like Jed Hoyer said, especially in year one of a 5-year contract, evaluating him based on 1 year, I think that's difficult. I gave him a passing grade. I gave him a P on a pass-fail scale. If you want me to give a grade to that, and when you make the graphic for social,
I do.
I'll give him a B.
A B.
B's fine.
Okay, why don't we just put B on that graphic then?
We could do that for social graphic.
He just decided.
Yeah, I was trying to evaluate.
No, we weren't allowed to change our mind yesterday, but that's okay.
Well, I just didn't understand why Ryan's just doing a pass-fail. That's not the point of this.
C is a pass. I gave him a pass.
You never taken a pass-fail class in college?
Oh, that's not what we're doing.
Yes,
I took plenty.
Anyway,
if you want me to give a A, B, C, D, E, or A, B,
His whole
C, D,
degree
F
was
grade.
pass-fail.
If you want me to give a grade on the grading scale, I'd go B for him. I think, Luke, you mentioned the Hector Nearest thing, and I think part of it for me is like when I say the manager just doesn't have as much control as on-field stuff as some other sports. Obviously, Jed Hoyer creates the roster. He gets the roster that he's given, and he's got to do the best he can with it. And at the end of the day, it's on the players to ultimately execute and do that stuff. With like Hector Nearest, obviously the Adbert Alzolay injury, the Julian Merriweather injury, that kind of stuff affected the bullpen early on. And so I kind of question, did he stick with Hector Nearest too long, or was that kind of really the only option he had in May? You know, I mean, maybe later on in the season, he stuck with him a little bit too long, but like over the summer, was that kind of the only option he had? In a way, yeah, because there wasn't like Porter Hodge hadn't moved into that closer spot yet as he did later in the season. People say he didn't play a lot of young players. And in a way, yes, with like you look at Alexander Canario and that, but he played Miguel Amaya 2/3 of the season, stuck with him through the hitting struggles and even the defensive struggles, and let him kind of learn through that. With PCA, like he could have sent him back down to AAA because he was not hitting for 3 months. He continued to play him once the bats started coming around, he was playing him every day. And I think that's a credit to him to win in a season when you're trying to win and you know winning's important. He continued to let this 22-year-old guy just work through all the struggles. And they were deep struggles that he was going through, to work through it because at least defensively, base running wise, like he felt that was enough to help the team get towards wins. No, I mean, it obviously wasn't the best first year. They didn't make the playoffs. They won 83 wins. I don't know. I think what the manager does, what managers' jobs are, isn't limited to on-field stuff, on what you see on TV, what you hear in press conferences, all that kind of stuff. And I give him a B. I think he did a better job than. I think he did a good job. I think it was going to be hard for him to gain 5 or 6 wins on his own, right? You're going to need players to overperform projections or like that based on the roster he was given, right?
He didn't gain any, though. That's why the highest I could go is a C. Like, I couldn't go. I understand what you're saying. I'm not totally knocking it. I'm just saying, for me personally, I couldn't go as high as a B, because if we are talking about expectations and those types of things, I did expect it to at least account for maybe 1 or 2 more wins. Not 5, not 8, but like there were none. Well, there were no more wins.
But I think my point is, do managers actually add 5 or 6 wins or not? It's hard to evaluate that, right? Because it also comes down to player performance and what roster you're given, I think.
Yeah, somebody was talking in the chat about creating a winning culture. You know what creates a winning culture? Superstar players, good players. But I will say, I think one example, maybe the best example I can have of a manager having an impact on a team is Madden when he first got here. and then Madden in 15 and 16, where the expectations could have choked a bunch of young players, but the guy was bringing in, telling them, embrace the target, be loose, right? All of this, try not to suck. All of that stuff sounds silly, but it was the right time for that team and that right group of players. The opposite can be said for, anybody that's been on the South Side. When Tony La Russa was there, telling the guys not to run hard to first base. So can a manager have a major impact on a team?
Yeah.
Yes. But more often than not, it's somewhere in the middle, like what Counsell had this season.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're going to have expectations like you have for him, I'm starting to hope that now you will start to see that the manager can help build a winning culture with the right players and start get closer to what Madden was doing early in his career with the Cubs, and a lot less of Tony La Russa second time around on the South Side. Managers can have a major impact,
and I think,
but not all the time.
I think a lot of times you see it as like a more negative impact than not, right? Like,
I think Madden at the right time is one of the rare examples of this guy was the perfect manager at the right time. I think it's way more likely that a guy is bad and helps the team sink.
Yeah. But so, like, just to end my point, like, that's why I introduced Jed Hoyer's quote. Like, I think for a manager, you sign him to a 5-year deal. He hasn't really had the time to have his impact on the organization as a whole, right? Like, just even last offseason, again, got hired a little bit late. Maybe he had some view, but a lot of this season was also kind of observing how things are run, how the processes are done in the organization. I do agree that I think by the end of this 5-year deal, you're going to look at it as like, yeah, he actually did have a massive impact on the organization, like what Jed said. It's not going to show up in year 1, 4 years down the road. I do think I do believe in Craig Counsell that he can help them get there. Obviously other people in the chat don't agree with that, but that's why I kind of said it's difficult to.
That's why you went pass with your first grade.
Yeah, that's why I
liked your pass grade better than I liked the B.
It's fine, but that's why it's difficult to evaluate a manager.
You should have never changed.
Should have never changed.
You got talked into it.
I mean,
if I got talked into it, I would have given him a C range, right? Like, if you guys talked me into it, I would.
Well, I'm saying you gave a pass, and then you got talked into giving a letter grade, and then it ended up being a B, and I agreed more with the pass, but that's all right.
Well, because the pass could be any range of grades.
I will say this to stick up for Ryan a little bit. Credit to me, because I'd never stick up for Ryan.
No.
Ryan was at the ballpark for all 81 home games or however many they play, and so he talks to Craig Counsell every single day. That's more than what me and Luke are doing.
That's right.
And anyone else in the YouTube chat. Is there. And anyone else who's probably going to yell at him on Twitter whenever we put the graphic out.
That's
because
true.
There's absolutely going to be people who are more mad at Ryan than me or Luke.
He sees what Counsell's doing up close more than we do. That is absolutely true.
That's just me putting out like that factoid. Like, that is true. He is around the clubhouse every home game and some road games whenever Jake allows him to go.
It's true.
For me, I bring up a few questions. All right. Everyone's like, throughout the season, we sat here in the YouTube chat. They start looking back in hindsight. We should have kept Ross, all this and that. Like, many people in the YouTube chat throughout this season, especially when times were really bad. And so I asked the question, what would have you given David Ross in 2023? We didn't grade the manager in 2023.
Did we? I don't know.
We didn't. This year was the first year we graded Jed Hoyer. It's been hard to grade Jed Hoyer the last 2 years because we knew that we needed to see some things play out in order to actually grade him. I think that's why we didn't grade Jed Hoyer.
Last year, I probably would have given David Ross a C- or a D. Now, the positive, not to give it an F, would have been, wow, he kept the team. He didn't let them quit.
Yeah.
Right? If he had a positive to himself, David Ross could look at it and say, man, this team was dying, and he'd listen to the players, and he got them to still believe, and they were in it up to the end.
Okay.
But the lineups, a lot of people hated, and I did as well.
Based off what happened in September and the fact that the quote about we're going to play the guys that got us here.
Yep. Yeah, he has to get credit for the collapse too.
Right. Like, I probably would have given him a D+ in for 2023 because of how the season ended and just some certain things, at least based off how I felt about how the season went, even though they completely overperformed what they were projected to be. And what I mean by completely, I mean they won like 5 or 6 more games than what they were projected. So, but they were projected for 90 wins entering September in 2023. And I openly said that after September, it was like, someone's got to be the fall guy here. Someone's got to take the hit for this. And the only reason that he ended up, I guess, in a way, being that guy is because Counsell was still available once the Cubs could officially go and try and get him or get Counsell, right? So this brings me to my point that I gave Craig Counsell a C- for his first year with the Cubs because they didn't win more games than they did last year. But at the same time, I feel like he did things that I always wanted David Ross to do more. And it's not his fault that he didn't have a legitimate closer. It's not his fault that for 2 months, the entire offense was slumping. He tried different things. I don't think that he did the same thing over and over like I felt like David Ross did. How many times did we watch David Ross put Jose Cuason in September of last season?
Didn't you trade for him?
They did, but
no, didn't you trade? Didn't you tell Hoyer to trade for Jose Cuas?
That's what Barb says. That's not true. I didn't know who Jose Cuas was until after the trade deadline of 2023.
I still don't know who he is.
All right. I feel like David Ross was someone who did not adapt very quickly when things were going wrong. Craig Counsell, in my opinion, did try to do different things. Ryan, you bring up playing PCA, despite the fact that he didn't hit for 2 months.
3 months.
Continued to play him. A guy that that we all know that if this organization is going to get back to the playoffs, they needed him to get those at-bats and go through the ups and downs. He played PCA. He started Michael Busch at first base, a position that he really didn't have a ton of experience at, and he struggled at it, but he continued to play him there. Yep. All right? Whether you want to agree with him about playing Morel at third base or not, I think you can make the argument that he shouldn't have played third base as long as he did. However, who else were you going to play at third base? Nick Madrigal? Save me that pain, okay?
You don't want to do that report card?
We already did. We gave third base an F, and he was part of it for me, okay? Who else was going to play third base, okay? And especially if he wanted the roster flexibility, do I think that he shouldn't have played Morel at third base as long as he did? Perhaps. At the same time, though, you didn't have a much better option. I was optimistic. And once again, it's not my job to be right about this. I'm just giving everyone my opinion. And I've openly said that, and I think all three of us we've openly said that we were wrong about Morel, okay, at third base. I think we've all acknowledged that.
I don't know if we were wrong. I just agree with their philosophy of let's give it a shot and see if it works.
Sure. But yeah. I think you can also look at it as Counsell played him at third because he thought that was the best for roster flexibility. I don't necessarily know if Jed Hoyer supported that or not, or else they would have played him more in previous years.
So maybe fair.
So maybe I should give David Ross a little bit more credit on that end. But again, like this is why I somewhat agree with Ryan when it comes to grading the manager, but Counsell decided who's in the lineup and where they're playing every day. So with Morel specifically, it is tough for me to figure out how I should grade Counsell on that, as much as I was a supporter of it. The only thing I can say is that he probably shouldn't have played third base as long as he did. I don't know any other guy that you could have played there on a consistent basis, though. And again, it took away roster flexibility and being able to utilize the DH with multiple players.
Yeah. He did say in Nashville at that first press conference we were with him, he said, it's our job. I don't want to say this is an exact quote, but it's pretty damn close. Yeah. It's our job to find a position for Christopher Morel because the bat plays.
Right? Yeah, and
that was him.
And I think that's part of it. And me and Cody have had the conversation, like, I think the reason why Christopher Morel didn't play third base much before this year, he got some run there throughout the first 2 years.
He could play it.
Yeah, it's because the managers, the coaching staff, like they didn't believe in him at third base. like not necessarily or not. I'm not necessarily saying that Craig Counsell believed he could play third base, but I do think that he knew what Christopher Morel being a serviceable third baseman, as long as the bat was playing, and obviously we know this year it didn't. As long as the bat was playing, what him being serviceable at third base could do for the lineup, could do for the roster construction.
Sure,
didn't work out, but I do think I do think he was right to try it.
Yes,
and see where it could go. I'll also say, especially with Christopher Morel, like he was willing to make the defensive substitution at the end of the game. Like he wasn't leaving Morel in there to sink or swim the whole game. He was willing to go and make a defensive substitution, take his bat out of the lineup, potentially, or maybe he comes up later in the game and you lose that bat now, but he's willing to do that. I think that's a credit to him that he wanted to give Morel the shot, but wasn't fully. What am I trying to say? He's willing to give Morel the shot, but at the end of the day, it was still about winning baseball games. And if he couldn't trust Morel to play third base at the end of a game defensively, he was willing to take him out and potentially lose the bat to do that.
So, again, that's just one little part of the way that I looked at it. I think the way he made the way he made lineups was significantly better than David Ross. It was consistent. Someone in the chat said something, criticized him earlier because of putting Swanson second in the lineup. I mean, second half of the season, Swanson deserved to be higher in the lineup. He was great in the second half. If you want me to criticize the lineup any at all, was leading off Nico Horner whenever Ian Happ was an on-base machine this year in terms of whether it was walking or just the fact that the offense played its best when Ian Happ was leading off. There was a moment too, and this is largely because of injuries. There was a portion of the season, I want to say it was mostly May, where Ian Happ hit third, and which gave me a lot of PTSD or triggered my PTSD. But at the same time, during those games, I think Bellinger and Seiya were out.
Yeah.
So I can understand in some facet to why he did that. At the same time, though, Ian Happ's numbers in the 3-hole, he has a large sample size of not being that good in that position. So it is what it is. Overall, though,
I think there was a point with Happ where he was batting fifth a lot too, and you kind of question because he started the season leading off and then he got moved there, and it was you looked at the numbers it's because he's the only one driving in runs. He's still getting on base, could still be the leadoff man.
When he got hot in June.
Yeah, it's he's the only one driving in runs right now. They kind of need him to play in that. When the offense started getting going again, you saw him move Happ back towards the top of the lineup a lot more again. Right.
So overall, the lineups, I just felt the consistency of, you knew Seiya and Bellinger were going to be 3-4 in the lineup every day. You knew Bush was going to be hitting second for the large portion of the season that he did, especially when he earned that trust from Craig Counsell after the April that he had. Were they perfect lineups every single day? I'm sure people would go back and be like, every single time Patrick Wisdom was in the lineup, this is why he gets a bad grade. There were reasons for why Patrick Wisdom would be in the lineup. And also, if he's on the roster, you have to play him sometimes, okay? It's just a fact of the matter. Left-handed pitcher on the mound, I get it, all right? The reason, though, that he gets a C- for me is that the expectations of the team were to make the playoffs. The expectations were to make the playoffs. And not only did you miss the playoffs, you missed by 10.5 games, and
you were never in the division race.
You were never in the race, and some of the decisions, like the nearest thing. Ryan, you have a good point. I'm not saying that Neris should have been out of the closer role in May or June, but it was literally August, and he was still in that role. I felt like you had seen gradual steps from Porter Hodge at that point, and at that point in the season, especially because of at that point you needed a miracle run. I feel like you needed to make that switch earlier. I understand you had to do it in April, May, and June. I get it because you had no one else, and that's more on Jed Hoyer than it is anyone else. It didn't help that Merriweather got hurt. It didn't help that Luke Little got hurt. It didn't help that Yency Almonte got hurt.
Yep.
Right? That's not Craig Counsell's fault. But I do think that at that point in the year, when you had seen gradual steps from Porter Hodge, that if you had made the move a little bit earlier, just Like, because at some point you just got to say, like, pull off the Band-Aid and full send it. You know what I mean? Like, if they had done that a little bit earlier, I'm not sure if they win more games. I'm not sure if they make the playoffs. But like Godfather said, 28 blown saves, man. Like, you win half of those, and they probably at least win more games. You know what I mean? So I think that's a big thing for me. I think the fact that, not that I care too much about the reactions in the dugout, the not sticking up for players. Like, I think there's a balance. Like, how many times do we have to sit here and watch Seiya get rung up on a strike 3 that wasn't a strike? And Counts would just like he would stay in that same spot in the dugout and he would bark at the umpire some. But I feel, especially when the team wasn't playing good, there has to be a point to where you go out there and get yourself purposely thrown out. I don't know if it leads to wins. I don't know if things change. But from the fan side, at least, I understand fans' frustrations with that. To me, it's a balance. I think that you can't get thrown out every game when a call doesn't go your way. But at the same time, I feel like we needed to see a little bit more. And when Justin Steele's in our chat and the chat's telling him, you showed more energy or life than anyone else in the dugout this year, it's like, they're kind of right. And so I just think that's one of those unmeasurable things. Like, I don't know how to grade that, but would have been nice to see a little bit more fire from him whenever things weren't going well, especially. Because sometimes something like that can maybe spark a team. The team did play better overall the rest of the season after Justin Steele yelled into the dugout saying, wake up, Again, they didn't make the playoffs, so it doesn't matter, and we're not going to look at that moment as anything that changed the season. But I will say that I think it's fair to say that we need to see a little bit more fire out of him. So not only do you not win more games than you did in 2023, and I have some nitpicks on on guys you stuck with, this and that, and the lack of fire in the dugout. At the end of the day, you were paid $8 million this year to be the reason, or to be that thing that puts the team over the top. Whether I agree with that or not, because you can also go find a video. It's on my TikTok. Go back to November of last year, the show after, or maybe it was the show of the Counsell breaking news. I said something along the lines of, this can't be the only big thing you do this offseason. You got to go do more. You have to put this team over the top. You just got the manager and paid him the most money of any manager in baseball. This cannot be it. All I'm saying is, while that is true, you also are the highest paid manager in baseball, and I can't go higher than a C. I said C- just so people wouldn't yell at Luke as much today.
We've had 45 minutes.
I did not expect you to say B.
No, we had 45 minutes of trying to figure out the grade. I think Cody got it right at the end. If I had to redo my grade at the end of the show, I would say C-. I think he didn't do what he did in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
It's no different than it was the year before. And yet the worst grade from management front office should be Jed Hoyer, not Craig Counsell. That doesn't mean he didn't have a subpar season. It's still a passing grade, because I think most of that lays at the feet of Hoyer and maybe Tom Ricketts. But I think C- is a fair grade. I hope he has a bigger impact on what happens this offseason. It doesn't mean that I'm not a believer going into 24. It doesn't mean that, that I think they should fire him. I expected more. That's going to do it for the TV side of the podcast. Don't forget, though, we want you guys. It's almost holiday season. Sign up to be a CHGO diehard or gift it. Right now, we've got the deal going on for $48. It's a limited time offer. It's the best deal we've ever had on being a diehard. All of Ryan's content is available to you. So when the Cubs do start to make moves this offseason, that's where you can get it. If you want to rant like you were ranting today about Craig Counsell, good or bad, the Discord is there for you. It's the perfect place to go ahead and do that. So we've given you that.
And we'll get Ryan in there so you can yell at him.
Ryan will be in there.
Hey, yeah, that's fine.
Gary will be there. The Die Hard card. The discounts come on the dope merch. All three of us have the dope merch on today.
You guys look good today.
Right?
you.
We
Thank
do
you.
look
Thank
good
you.
today.
Yeah.
And so all of those things are available to you. Make sure you sign up to be a diehard, and that's the best gift you could give somebody this holiday season. We want to thank everybody that watched the podcast today. We're going to be back here tomorrow again at 11:30. Until then, thanks for watching and fly the W.
We all silly like the mayor.